How's it going?
So
Um, yeah, NBA returns. As always, Raj, Jordan, Henry. I kind of want to put this out here before we get started. This from our boy Jordan. About to take a nap. What'd you miss during your nap, Jordan? Why don't you go ahead and tell us?
I've taken two major naps in the last 2.5 weeks. One of them was during the Capitol storming, and one of them was during the James Harden trade. And I feel like I've missed so much.
You have yes. It's the title of the episode. It's what's on top of everybody's mind. It's all over Twitter. It's all over social media. James Harden headed to the Brooklyn Nets. We've been talking about it here for a while. I'm going to read the full trade breakdown from Shams. So just give me a sec. Rockets are getting Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Karooks, whatever his first name is, 3 Brooklyn first rounders, Milwaukee first rounder, and 4 Brooklyn first round swaps. Nets are getting James Harden. Pacers getting Karis LeVert in a second rounder. Pacers got looped into the trade with Houston to tie in for the Oladipo Karis LeVert thing, and Cavs are getting Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. We've been talking about it for a while, but this is kind of what's been on our mind since really the end of the off season. James Harden targeting Brooklyn as his sort of preferred destination after all the drama unfolded there in Houston. Over the past few weeks, he had the issues with COVID and whatnot. The COVID protocols breaking that whole thing, and he wasn't playing, and half the Rockets roster wasn't playing. And we were like kind of laying here and wait, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is James Harden actually going to get traded to the Brooklyn Nets? And it was sort of a roller coaster. It was up and down, up and down, up and down. And then following yesterday's sort of, falling apart there, James Harden came out and made some comments, and pretty quickly the trade rumors got heated up again, and that's what happened. James Harden got dealt. Let's just get into our thoughts on it. Jordan, why don't you start us off?
Definitely, obviously a lot to wake up to. No more afternoon naps for me.
Stop taking naps, bro.
To be honest, I think first and foremost, I'm just happy for Houston that they get rid of what has turned out to be just a completely toxic situation, and to be honest, a toxic player. We know Harden's talents, and there's really no denying that. He's obviously been, one of the best guards of the last 25 years. And I do respect a lot of his on-court abilities, but he's handled this, as we've said so many times, about as poorly as anybody else could. And I think it's been really unfair to the fans and the team, and head coach Paul Silas for sure has to deal with all this. I think it's really unfair and really poor the way he handled it. So I'm really glad for Houston first and foremost. That they're going to get Victor Oladipo back, who plays the same position, but maybe not quite as good. Obviously, going to be better on defense though. Probably, hopefully, a little bit better fit team wise. They're not going to have all this ISO crap for 20 seconds to get every possession. And obviously, all the draft picks, you're looking for, the down the line to get some guys in the draft. If you're Brooklyn, you took the swing. They've kind of not so secretly been struggling to start the year. And I know we've had the KD sitting out with some injuries and precautions, and who knows what's going on with Kyrie right now. So I can understand some of the losses, but I guess it was a move they felt they needed to make. And now I feel like it doesn't necessarily provide all the answers. There's still more questions. I think the Kyrie thing is still hanging over them. If you can get all 3 of them there, committed, buying in, that's a really tough lineup. It doesn't really matter who else you put around them. You have 3 amazing, offensive talents. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do from there. And then, for the other 2 teams involved, good for Indiana. For Oladipo's been rumored to be traded for a while now. They're able to get him out of there and get Karis LeVert, who has shown in the games that Kyrie and KD have not played that he is capable of carrying the offensive load for most of the night. So good move for him. Hopefully he's kind of going to fill in that TJ Warren role, since TJ Warren's out for Indy right now, and is going to help continue the strong start for the Pacers. And then shout out to Raj's Cavs for essentially a non-protected first round pick. They get Jarrett Allen, who's still in his rookie deal, uber athletic center. I think it's a win for most of these teams. I think if you're Brooklyn, there's still a lot of questions. I'm not saying that it puts them, even second to, behind the Lakers right now, but definitely a wild, interesting day. And it had to be done, I think, is the bottom line. It definitely needed to happen for both sides. And again, I'm happy for Houston. And don't forget, there's only one basketball in the court at a time. So good luck to the Nets.
Yeah, and Henry, that's something that you've certainly stressed when we started talking about this trade talks from the beginning, like whether or not he was going to go to Brooklyn or Philly, or if he was going to just stay put in Houston. And I know you were pretty gung-ho from the get-go that James Harden is not going to be a good fit there in Brooklyn. There's only one ball. That was your line. There's only one ball in that team. I want to hear you talk a little bit more about this.
I mean, I still feel the same way, but it's just now that it's finally came into fruition, it's kind of hard to let everything sink in, especially with so many trades coming in. Like I didn't see Indiana coming into play within trade talks. Now that Oladipo's gone, every just pretty much the whole dynamic of the league has changed. James Harden, KD, and Kyrie on the same team. I just don't like that this had to happen in the middle of the whole Kyrie situation because this is going to make things, more complicated than it should be. If all three players can stay stable throughout the season, of course they're going to have a great chance to win the championship and probably cruise by the Eastern Conference. We're going to have to see, but James Harden, KD, and Kyrie, all three being ISO players, very ball dominant. That's my only worry, especially with a rookie coach like Steve Nash at the helm. Like I just don't want this to be another 2013 Laker run where you get three superstars and it doesn't turn out the way everybody thought it would turn out, right? But that's only my biggest worry. Like everything on paper seems terrific. Obviously, you have three MVP candidates. Kyrie, won a championship himself. KD, two-time champion. James Harden looking for his first. So there's a lot of hunger. There's a lot of drive there. It's just like that's the only thing. It's just like I want to see it play out. I actually want to see how they perform on the court together, especially in a clutch time situation, because I feel like we can all agree we're all curious to see what would actually happen because Kyrie's not a self-centered person per se, but I know he loves taking the big shots. KD knows he can make the big shots, and James Harden wants to take the big shots. So there's going to be probably some stress there. But aside from that, on 2K, this looks scary. on In real life, obviously scary as well. But and for the Rockets, I feel bad for head coach Silas because this is his first gig as a head coach. He doesn't deserve to go through all this. But that's what comes with the NBA. The NBA is very unpredictable. Sometimes superstars are going to have a major shift in the middle or the beginning of the season, prior or after, whenever. You just got to be prepared for it. But and another note, I hope Karis LeVert gets the opportunity he deserves because that man has too much talent. I feel like we can all agree on that. That man has a lot of talent. He knows how to not necessarily carry a team yet alone, but he's getting there. He knows like he can will his team to wins. And now that he has, a solid core around him with
Sabonis there in Indiana.
With Sabonis, Miles Turner, TJ Warren, I feel like he's in the perfect and Malcolm Brogdon, he's in the perfect position to fully excel in his potential. I feel like he landed in the perfect spot. And and what Jordan was saying about Raj's Cavs, hey, you guys got Jared Allen, probably the best rim protector in the league. So that paired up with Andre Drummond. Are Cavs going to make the playoffs? I know you guys are a little rocky right now.
The rebounding title by like 1,000 rebounds.
Andre Drummond is already averaging like 15 a game or something.
Exactly, but it's just Raj. What do you think? Who do you think is the biggest? I guess you can say loser of this whole situation, if you have one.
Yeah, I mean the loser I feel like was just whoever ended up with James Harden at the end of the day, just because of all the struggles. And I see my boy Max there in the comments saying the Cavs won the trade. I think the Cavs definitely did sneak in there and make a little like nice jump. That was completely unexpected, but I'll get to the supporting teams in a second because I do want to focus on Harden, him being the selling point of this trade. And to your point, Henry, the fact that it did come in the midst of this entire Kyrie situation, we don't really know what Kyrie's deal is. And like, you kind of hope that, Kyrie mentally is, a stable place, but there's all these, conflicting reports and whatnot. You don't really know what's going on. And then he's jeopardizing the health of others by, not wearing a mask, going to parties, whatever it may be. I don't want to speculate too much about that, but it is sort of, muddled in this thing that we were already expecting from Brooklyn of them having the drama. And they started the season off well. And in our first episode, we said that this looks like the real deal team that we were expecting out of them, but whether or not that like sort of shakiness was going to come in the next week or two, that's up to be seen, and it did kind of come because KD, sat a couple games, they dropped a few, and then this Kyrie situation came, and now Harden, who feels like he's just completely, he's an unstable factor no matter where he goes. It feels like at this point, and I feel like him going into Brooklyn now, them having an inexperienced coach in Steve Nash with the Kyrie situation, KD's health being, up and down a little bit. I am a bit concerned. I think it is, they're the mentality, and on paper, yeah, they certainly should be a championship or bust team, but there's so many additional factors that go into this entire situation that I think, there's no win. There was no win for, I think, whoever ended up with Harden. So I feel like you just have to call them a loser here. But on the Houston front, I agree. Picking up Oladipo out of this deal, that feels like better than anything else that Houston could have done with this. And Karis LeVert going to Indiana, I like that fit. I like him next to Sabonis. I didn't think Indiana was going to keep Oladipo throughout the season anyway. So for them to pick up, a potential all-star in Karis LeVert is a pretty good signing for them. And I think they're sort of, gung-ho about being behind Sabonis as their leading guy anyways. That feels like the direction that Indiana's going in. But yeah, with Houston, I mean, Oladipo, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, those are solid pieces. Whether or not Houston can put it together under a rookie head coach, yet to be seen. But I do like Oladipo's fit there alongside John Wall. I don't know if Oladipo's a more stable piece than Bradley Beal. Like you said, Jordan, he is a better defensive asset than a lot of what Houston's had recently. So I like that fit there. And Oladipo has a ceiling that's pretty high. So I expect him to get better there alongside John Wall. Hopefully, he's got a good playmaker next to him. I expect him to succeed there in Houston. And yeah, with Cleveland, I really didn't see it coming. And I've got the sort of joke, in my name, the 7-footers lineup incoming. They did actually just waive Thon Maker, so that's been sort of ruled out, I guess. But I do like this pickup, and especially because JaVale McGee and Andre Drummond have, they've been playing solid in this opening stretch. I know most of Cleveland's roster is basically injured at this point, so that's why we've dropped a few games here in a row. But Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee have been there. The problem is they've been getting in a lot of foul trouble, and I do like Jared Allen coming in there as opposed to Thon Maker subbing in for those minutes. Like you said, Henry, he's one of the best rim protectors in the league. I really, really like this fit. And I hope that maybe once Garland, Sexton, Love, all these guys come back from injury, Okoro's still kind of recovering from injury as well. I hope that this Cleveland team can make a push because they looked good. They looked good to start the season, and I hope that they can kind of make that push here later on. But yeah, let's kind of just open the floor now to discuss whatever we feel like other additional factors. Go for it, Jordan.
I have two things. One's not very serious, and one is serious because it was what I was going to do with Harden. The first thing is Henry did bring up my Lakers just twisting the knife about that 2013 season. This is the Lakers' official press release response to the Nets getting James Harden.
Uh-oh.
Just wanted to throw that out there. And the second thing is, I've harped on him a lot, and we all have too, but I feel like I've been the hardest, and it will continue to be the hardest. I'm pulling for Houston to go on like a 3-week winning streak where they just go 9-1 and just start eviscerating opponents.
You see a lot of that with these like major shakeups too, where the team just kind of is in a mental state where they respond in that kind of way where they go on a winning streak.
And you've seen like some of the quotes that Boogie had one last time I read it. He said the other 14 guys in the locker room have done nothing to him. We've only showed up to work like everybody else. It's completely unfair to the rest of the guys in the locker room. John Wall had that quote last night. I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something like, it's hard when not everybody's buying in. Mm-hmm. Like everyone recognized the kind of the writing on the wall, and not even just that Harden needs to be in a better situation. They've realized that he's just been basically an ass to them the entire time. And it's not like, Harden has gone about this, and I've said this on previous streams. Harden is going about this like he is playing with some LeBron, Kobe, 06, 07 teammates where he's got like Smush Parker and Kobe Gibson and like all this other stuff. Like John Wall, for not playing a game in like 2.5 years, is averaging 18-5, shooting 54% from the field. Christian Wood, well, I think are some more counting stats than anything, is a candidate for most improved player and is at least living up to the contract. He's putting up 18 and 10 a game. Like, Eric Gordon's been a little hurt, but he's been playing well in the games that he's been in. Like, he's not playing with scrubs. He wasn't playing with scrubs at all. Their defense was struggling, but that's what happens when you have James Harden, who doesn't ever buy in on defense, and PJ Tucker, who's they're probably their best defensive player, who is unhappy there already. Tucker's quietly wanted the new contract and hasn't gotten it either. So it's not like they have been bad. He's not like a bad sporting cast. He just whined and complained and didn't get his, wanted to get his way. And it is kind of a shame that, stars nowadays get to just do that, and show up late and show up apparently out of shape because there was no more Harden drama last night with how he looked. I'm going to read you the quote that Harden said last night after the game because everyone was freaking out over it. And then I'm going to read you what I would have said if I was the Rockets. James Harden said after the game on the podium, he said, "I love this city. I've literally done everything I can. The situation is crazy. I don't think it can be fixed. Thanks." And then he just left the podium, which that's just a laughable statement. Mm-hmm. So if I were Houston, I just tweaked a couple of words. If I were Houston, I would have said this: "We love James Harden. We've literally done everything we can for him. The situation is crazy. I don't think it can be fixed because of Harden's attitude. Thanks." And if I were Houston, I would have left the podium because it's a joke. Like I said, I feel bad for Silas. I feel bad for the front office. It's well documented that Daryl Morey made the most trades of any GM while Harden's there. They went big with Dwight Howard and Clint Capella. They did small ball. They let him be the point guard. They brought in Chris Paul, the point guard. They brought in his buddy Russell Westbrook. Like they have brought in any and every piece to try. And I think the biggest reason that maybe he's acting like this, and I'm just taking a shot in the dark. I'm obviously nowhere near Harden's head and hope to never be. But I think James Harden thinks that Houston was actually really close to the title in, what was that, 2018? When
3 years ago, right?
Yeah, so 2018 against the Warriors. And for some reason, a lot of people think that series is close because it went 7 games. But if Iggy doesn't get hurt, that series is over in 5. Like I'll die on that hill. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I think as soon as that happened, I think he thought that he was so close to beating this legendary team that like he thought that every year like they should be totally back there. When I think it was kind of a fluke thing. And he's just been in this mindset that, you know, he is good enough to carry a team, you know, like a LeBron James, like a Giannis, like a Kawhi. And I think the reality is he's just not. Like we've talked about this so many times with Harden. He's you know, a lot of great regular season moments, putting up 60-point triple doubles and, you know, scoring over 25, 30, 35 points a game, you know, scoring over 30 points a game for the last like 3 years, you know, impressive individual stuff. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's usually him who stinks. Like it's not like his teammates are the ones that are completely letting him down. They play a part in it. They, you know, they get a piece of that pie, I'm sure. But Harden has stunk in so many playoff games, so many big moments, so many closeout games that it's on him. You know, I really blame this whole situation on him. The way it started, the way it was handled, and the way it was finished. And you know, I hate to root against like Durant because I like KD and I think he's playing phenomenal. I think that can't be understated. And
yeah,
you know, Kyrie, I don't know what's going on right now. I'm not like trying to judge him either way. I just think he's in a different place than a lot of people. But I like him as well on the court basketball wise. But I feel like I have to almost root against Brooklyn the rest of the year because like I think it's just unfair that Harden got to no show this first part of the season and then get his way. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I definitely don't envy being Steve Nash and that coaching staff right now because there's still a lot of work to do despite making this trade.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. But Henry, do you have anything in response to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, like, Jordan brought up a good point. How Kyrie, he's been playing the no-show game. You know, like he has his own situation going on, and that was happening with with Kyrie Irving. I mean, with James Harden too. So, do you guys think there's gonna be a scenario within the season for the Nets? Like, let's say Kyrie doesn't show up to a game, or James Harden doesn't show up to a game, and then things start like dwindling down from there. Do you guys think that might be able to happen?
Yeah, it's already started. It's already started. It's already started pretty much.
See, and that's my only problem right there because, like I said, on paper, this is great. And shout out to my boy Marco Ruiz because he told me he was like, "Who the hell is gonna play defense?" So that's another big problem right there. But that's something that I want to see play out. You know, like, are they even gonna show up to games? Because right now the league really is in a state where I feel like, obviously, you know, unprecedented times and everything, but now players are more willing and more able to not just not show up to practice or not show up to games. So let's say they go on a 3-game losing streak for whatever reason. Do you think, you know, that would I think that'd be happening. I think I could see like James Harden and Kyrie not showing up to a game because they're pissed off. And like at the end of the day, they can't be doing that all the time. I know this is a weird season. I know these are weird times, but at the end of the day, you know, you show up because you're getting paid, you know, you have your contract and everything, and you can't just do that to your team wherever you go. So unfortunately, I can't see that happening. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in response to them, like, maybe going off and disappearing and that causing issues, I certainly see that being a factor. I think it's inevitable with the amount of ego that you have in that locker room now. On the front of how that actually affects Brooklyn, like I've heard a lot of people talking about, you know, Brooklyn's depth now because they traded away some solid pieces. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a thin team at this point. I mean, obviously Dinwiddie's out for the season with injury, and that hurts them quite a bit. But they've still got guys like Joe Harris and Landry Shamet, some guys that can show up and put the ball in the basket. And the advantage of having 3 all-stars is when 2 of those guys are out, one of them is still there. So, you know, you just hope that they're not all 3 sort of butting heads in the locker room and then all 3 decide to go and sit out and, you know, be brats. I don't see KD being that kind of player. We know KD has like his social media issues and whatnot, but KD's not the kind of guy that, yeah, he's not going to go out there and like give a half-ass effort or just sit at home and cross his arms and pout. Like, I know people get on his case because he went in ring chase and went to Golden State and whatnot, but at the end of the day, he was still the best player on that team. He was out there showing up every single night, giving 110%. And I stand by the fact that I don't know if those Golden State teams would have won all three of those both of those championships without him there when he was there for those couple seasons. So I imagine that KD is still the anchor of this team. And he's going to be a stabilizing factor. And I know he's going to butt heads with Harden and Kyrie about who takes the last shot and whatnot. We know that's going to happen. The reports are going to come out probably within the next 7 to 10 days. I imagine that we're going to get our first report of who was fighting between who about who's going to get the last shot. But I think, when we say that Durant is one of the all-time greatest, and that doesn't come down to just what he like the amount of points that he puts in the basket or whatever. It comes down to who he is as a player, and he goes out there and gives it his all every single night. He doesn't sit out games unless he's injured. And I know he has the injury troubles now and he's had to rest and whatnot, but I don't think that impacts the sort of leadership that he brings to that locker room. I think he's going to be a stabilizing factor, and I expect a team that's led by KD that has pieces like Joe Harris around him. I still see that team, even if Harden and Kyrie want to pout, I still see that team being successful.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it's nothing against KD or even Kyrie. I mean, KD, except if the Harden trade didn't go down, we probably would have focused more on like a little bit of a recap of the first couple of weeks. And KD would have to be at the top of the list of, best stories. And the guy's coming off the Achilles and is pretty much 100%. Like, he's averaging 30 points a game. He's shooting, over 50% from the field. He hit the go-ahead bucket the other night. Like, he's looked phenomenal. So I do root for his success, on the court. And I agree with everything you said. I think he's going to, he's not going to fall into the trap of necessarily complaining as much. I mean, he deserves the ball. If you ask me to pick like who gets the ball at the end of the game, I would like the 6'11", 7-foot guy who can handle the ball like a point guard and shoot from 35 feet. I'm going to take that guy. Doesn't matter if it's James Harden, if I like James Harden or not. The one thing I do want to say is that we, obviously this came about very quickly today. You had the comments post game last night by Harden, and then today, all of a sudden, it was 2:00. It's like, okay, they're going to get a deal done really quickly. And the other team involved was Philly, and they were asking for, I guess, Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey and maybe a pick or something like that. And we'd kind of talked about it. I feel like, in a way, Philly dodged the bullet here because they had been playing so well up until recently, but I blame some COVID stuff for that. They haven't really had their full lineup together. They have been playing very well for the most part to start the year, and Joel Embiid is playing like a top 3 MVP candidate, like the Embiid that we've always wanted. He's having I think it's very early, but he's showing signs of having that 2000 Shaq season where he's just kind of saying, screw it, and I'm just going to dominate every night. And so I feel like if you would have added Harden to that mix, all of a sudden, like everything that goes through Embiid is not going through Harden. And I just think it would have maybe not ruined the season, but it definitely would have taken it in a different course. So I don't know if you guys agree with that. I don't have anything on that, but I feel like for my friends that are Philly fans, I feel like they dodged the bullet. I was hoping that he didn't go there for that reason. I like seeing Embiid play well, even if it means Philly's playing well. I feel like they definitely made, I don't know. Again, you don't know what happens behind the scenes. You don't know if more of them are actually considering it or if it was just Houston blowing smoke, but I'm glad that they stayed away for sure.
I think that was Rogers' argument, right before the show, to not go for that Philly trade anymore, because I feel like we were advocating for like a Ben Simmons trade to Houston or something, but I like what you were saying, Jordan. Like, they're playing terrific basketball right now. They're number 1 or number 2 in the East, and everything's going Joel Embiid's way finally. So to break all that up in the midst to get like a James Harden that's going to be super ball dominant.
I'm gonna send Marco I'm gonna send him an autographed gnome.
that might be the best comment we've ever had.
No, but what does it say? But no, it's true. But that's the thing. Like, I was finally happy to see Philly finally play competent basketball after so long of having a good squad and playing incompetent basketball. And that has a lot to do with Doc Rivers finally being there and figuring certain things out. So to add James Harden to that doesn't fit. I feel like we talk about culture on this podcast a lot. It does come down to culture. Do you feel with the culture and dynamic of the roster and the franchise itself? I don't think James Harden would have, adapted to running the offense through Joel Embiid. And thank God that didn't happen, because at this point, I did not want that to happen. And just like reeling it back, It was one of you two. Somebody wanted to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. Who was it?
That definitely not me. I think we were both advocating for Embiid getting out of there.
Yeah, I was originally on the Embiid train, like a year, about 6 months to a year ago, saying do the Embiid for Harden swap, let Simmons play off the ball, etc.
We were preaching that. We were preaching that through the entire offseason too. This was like just a couple months ago.
But Embiid, I mean, I've seen this. We've seen this kind of before with Embiid, where he gets hot. But I feel like this has been a prolonged stretch, really, since the beginning of the season. Embiid is playing very, very well. I watched the end of the Heat game the other night, and both rosters were depleted, so it kind of was in a way. And he just took over in the second half, and especially in overtime. He was hitting shot, jumper after jumper, getting rebounds in the post. I think he made all of his free throws. Like he's really having an MVP type season. So I'm glad they kept him there. And I think Simmons is crucial too, and Maxey. I mean, having bodies right now with everything that's going on with the COVID cases and some of these games being postponed, I think is crucial. So sacrificing 3 or 4 rotation guys for one person is probably not the best move for that situation right now. Maxey's shown that he can be a good scorer off the bench. And I know Simmons has kind of had some struggles here as of late. I know Philly fans are a little down on him, but I think he does a lot of things that don't show up in the box score. And especially on the defensive end, he's been very good as well. So I think he's someone, even if he's your 4th or 5th option offensively, they're humming right now. So like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question to you guys is, were you at all surprised by the fact that he didn't go to Philly, or Philly didn't have a little bit more steam coming into this thing? And I think it goes to the conversation that we were having this morning, basically in our group message, that we were talking about the fact that, like, Philly maybe a month ago, it would have made sense for them to make this deal, but right now that they're one of the best teams in the league. Joel Embiid, the piece that all 3 of us are basically saying, get rid of him, get him out of there. He's ruining this team. He's been the best player on that team. He's been the anchor of that team. And to what you're saying, Jordan, like, he's been absolutely dominant. I wouldn't quite put him at 2000 Shaq level just yet. I want to give him.
Yeah, I was
I wasn't saying he was. He's hitting like the checkpoints. I guess would be the way to say. He's hitting the checkpoints of that season, which are like Shaq finally, he was in shape. He just dominated every night, and that's what Embiid is doing so far.
What it goes to is the fact that all of us we've been saying get Joel Embiid out of there, get Joel Embiid out of there, but it's not because we don't like him. We've constantly said that he has the potential to be one of the best players in the league. He just doesn't mentally seem there, physically seem checked in. Like he's just not always 100% there. And so far, so good right now for Philly. Mm-hmm. It's still a long season, and what you're saying with all the COVID stuff going on, and we just got to report the 16 new tests positive. Like, there's still a lot of factors that can come into play here, but I think Doc Rivers has instilled something in Embiid. And I know Philly fans are, gung-ho about getting Brett Brown out of there for coaching change. And we were just like, no, that's not the problem. But it seems like it has made a significant difference. So we'll eat our words here a little bit. And I think that, throwing Harden into the mix there in Philly, whether it was Embiid that got out of there or Simmons that got out of there and some of those other young pieces that have been playing well, that it just would have been a disaster. And I'm surprised that even in the most recent reports in the past 24 hours that Philly was still sort of in the mix because they've just been playing so well. I just didn't imagine that the guys there, and I guess maybe it's Daryl Morey's ties to Harden, whatever, but I imagine Doc Rivers had stomped into Morey's office and he was just like, no, don't fuck this up. Like, don't mess this up. We don't need Harden here. He's going to mess up the flow that we've got going. And I'm, like you said, I'm happy for Houston. I mean, for Philadelphia. I'm happy that they're succeeding now with this core who we thought was going to have a lot of potential after, the whole process and whatnot. They finally got their 2 guys that they can go behind it, and they haven't lived up to the hype. But now they're starting to show that. I'm curious, like a little bit of a spinoff here from the Harden talk. Do you guys think that this Philly sustains this kind of success throughout the rest of the season?
Good, Emery.
What were you gonna say?
I mean, I definitely think there's a world where they do. I don't think that this is fluky. I know they've played if you're going to nitpick their strong start, it's that they haven't played the strongest schedule. They play like the Hornets back-to-back games. They lost to the Hawks, who have shown to be up and down. Like, they've had a couple of games against weak teams, but flip side of that is they are taking care of business most of the time against those bad teams, which is something that you have to do in this league. And like I said, Embiid's playing well. Tobias Harris has come out shooting the ball a lot better. Who am I missing? There's one other guy. I mean, Simmons has obviously been good as well. Danny Green has been Danny Green. He's hit and miss. he goes 0 for 9 one game, and then he scores like 30 the next.
He's been solid. I mean, he's given them as much as he gave LA, I'd say.
Yeah, it's fine. Here's my mood. I'm not worried about it. I mean, I definitely think this is also kind of that Doc Rivers effect that we talked about too. That first year, he really gets guys, especially when he has like stars together. He's able to get them to buy in. See, 2008 Celtics, that year they went 66-16. I think having KG and Ray Allen that year was huge, but also having Doc Rivers there to kind of be the glue to keep everybody together was huge. So I definitely think Philly is going to be in the hunt all year. I feel confident at this point, barring some injuries, of course, that they're going to be a top, I would say, 3 seed in the East. And I wasn't so sure about that to start the year. I had them like 4th or 5th.
I definitely think like 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah, I definitely think they can be top 3. And if they're playing well, if they're playing near this level to end the year, and everyone's healthy, and maybe they've added like a buyout guy in a couple months, as an extra person off the bench, it'd be a tough out. It doesn't matter if they're playing, if they're playing Brooklyn, if they're playing Milwaukee. If you're playing any of those teams in a 7-game series, it'd be tough. That's the big question: who's going to guard Embiid? If Embiid's playing this well, there's really nobody in the East that can truly match up. Maybe Bam can do his best if you're Miami, but he's still undersized. So when Embiid's playing like this, they're just a really, really hard team to stop. And I think it's legit. I think they're going to be pretty good the rest of the year and be contending for that top spot.
What you got, Henry?
I was gonna say the same thing that Jordan was just saying right now. One, the whole Doc Rivers dynamic. That's something that I talked about. That it was the dumbest move by the Clippers to get rid of Doc Rivers, because Doc Rivers was not the problem. It was really just poor performance in that Game 7 against the Nuggets from his players. It was not his fault, and getting rid of him to get Ty Lue was not a smart decision, at least in my opinion, because what Jordan brought up right now, he literally has the experience of dealing with star players and turning that franchise around. What he brought up, 2008 Celtics, the Clippers, when they got Chris Paul, Doc Rivers was there. He was able to keep, if we're talking about stability, then Doc Rivers is your man to have stability in a franchise, because he's going to keep you in a consistent basis of winning, at least in the regular season. So that goes to the question, do I think, they're going to hold this up to the rest of the season? Yeah, I do think that, because not only do they have the star power, but they do have the right coaching staff in order to do so, because under Brett Brown, just the dynamic wasn't there. But I feel like it is now, because Doc Rivers is a highly respected coach, high IQ, and just outside of basketball, I feel like he becomes a great mentor for stars and role players alike, and that's what creates great chemistry for his team. Now just talking about Joel Embiid, it's just like, who is going to stop Joel Embiid? Let's say if the Nets and the Sixers meet in the playoffs, who is going to stop Joel Embiid down low? Because their best rim protector, Jared Allen, he's not there anymore. So can you really trust DeAndre Jordan with those minutes all the time trying to guard Joel Embiid? I don't really think so. So I feel like now we're talking about which teams really won this trade, and we're not really talking about the Nets, which is a funny thing. And it just goes to show that there's just so many implications right now to really think about. But I think hopefully now the Sixers can become a team that makes it out of the Eastern Conference Finals. You guys know me, I'm a Celtics fan, but I think this is a long time coming for the process that's been processing for too long. But yeah, Raj, what are your thoughts? Do you think the Sixers are now a Eastern Conference Final for sure team to get there?
No, I still think that this team could combust just like they have in previous seasons. But I think they certainly have a lot more stability. And speaking to like Doc's leadership and mentorship, I think I've called it out here on the show before, but if you haven't watched Playbook on Netflix, it's like a mini series where they interview coaches. There's an episode with Doc Rivers, just an incredible episode. And I had a lot more respect for him, because I'm not the biggest fan of Doc Rivers as a coach, if I'm being completely honest. I think he's okay at best. I think he's a middling coach. But the sort of mentality that he goes into each and every locker room with, I have a lot more respect for him after watching that Playbook episode. So it's like 30 minutes, definitely check that out. And when it comes to I feel like the Eastern Conference is just as much sort of up in the air. Like even teams like Miami are not performing quite as well as we expected them to. I feel like the Eastern Conference still has a lot of sort of wiggle room, and I would still have to put my money behind Milwaukee being the best team there. I know they sort of fall apart in the playoffs and whatnot, but maybe they'll respond after last season's sort of a disastrous playoff showing. I still have some hope there in Milwaukee, especially with the pickup of Drew Holiday. So no, I don't really see the Sixers being the favorite or even really a guarantee for the top 3 in the East, but I have a lot more faith in them now than I.
Hey, Raj.
Yeah, what's up?
Who you got in the West?
That's tough. Yeah, it's the Lakers. I mean, I put them in my number 1, obviously.
Hey, Jordan, if you want to talk about the Lakers real quick, I'll give it to you guys. You guys are cruising by, and it's kind of like I said, it's kind of scary because we also what LeBron did to the Rockets.
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, we knew
turnaround no look 3 had me.
Did you guys hear that story though? How like Dennis Schroeder betted him like $100 to hit that, and he, oh my god, okay, never mind. You can go off, Jordan.
Talk about there's playing checkers, there's playing chess, and then there's playing like craps, and that's what LeBron's playing right now. You know
those games where you like the arcades where you have the hammer, you just bash all the aliens. That's the Lakers right now. They're just like bashing everybody that comes.
Two quick points. Well, 3 quick points about the Lakers. I promise it won't be long. Number one, we talked about this before we went on. I just want to give the Lakers credit right here on this stream for forcing this James Harden trade to happen. We kicked James Harden out of the West. I just want to say that here live. I'm looking right into the camera. The light's good. Like the lighting's good and everything. The Lakers kicked James Harden out of the West with these last 2 wins. But no, they are playing well. I am really happy with everything. They're starting to really build that chemistry. You know, you talk about Danny Green being good and bad for the Sixers. They flipped him for Dennis Schroeder, who's been awesome. You know, he's just an extra ball handler. Not every possession has to run through LeBron. LeBron doesn't have to do all the work. Him and AD can sit, and you can have Schroeder and Harrell run things. Harrell's got his deficiencies on defense, sure, but he brings that energy every night, especially nights when the Lakers maybe don't always have it. He's been there. And your best duo, as I pointed out today in our group chat, best plus minus or whatever it is Lebron and Marc Gasol. And while Gasol's been hit and miss at times as well, his playmaking and IQ on both ends of the floor is just it's just light years ahead of Dwight Howard. And JaVale. So I've been really happy with the moves are panning out. Really, the Pelinka should be the front runner for executive of the year just for all these moves that are panning out. And then the third thing is just a quick bit of fun trivia. DeMarcus Cousins obviously got like another technical last night. Ho-hum, another day in the office for him. Do you know who he's tied with for the league leading technicals or this, 3 weeks into the year?
I have no idea.
It's not who you think. Would you believe it's Luka Doncic?
I can believe
Luka's he's got a little flame. He likes to golf at the refs and he's not happy.
Yeah, and I think either also tied for first or like a close second is Davis Bertans. So as they said, somebody said in the podcast last night, they were like, it's DeMarcus Cousins and like tall foreign European white boys that are complaining at the refs. So that's all I have about the Lakers. I'm happy right now. Just keep things moving.
Right, we really went from James Harden and somehow snuck in the Lakers in there.
It was going to happen. It was inevitable. Let's quickly touch on the other 3 teams. I know we spoke about them a little bit at the top, but I do want to quickly run through them real quick. So the Rockets, do we think that they still make the playoffs with John Wall, Oladipo being their sort of core there?
Yeah.
Maybe.
If Victor Oladipo can play like pre-injury Victor Oladipo, then yes, which I do believe he was getting back to that form just recently, with his play in Indiana, and obviously they got rid of him, but I think that's going to be the biggest factor. Can Victor Oladipo go back to that form? Because look at the pieces around him now: John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, PJ Tucker. I feel like these players are now in their best situations for all the major moves. So yeah, I can see the Rockets being a first round exit, probably making, let's say, 7th, 8th seed. Sure. But because let's take into consideration also right now, Memphis Grizzlies, they don't have John Morant, and John Morant scored 44 points in his season debut, so they had good momentum there, but he's not there anymore to push for that, at least that 8th seed for now. The Pelicans performing here and there, they're kind of wavy themselves. The Suns are playing good as expected, but yeah, I can see. No, I'm not guaranteeing it. I don't think anybody's going to guarantee it, but Jordan, you're going like, what do you think?
Because I'm looking at the standings, and you look at the locks, I guess, for right now. To the Lakers, the Jazz, the Clippers, Phoenix is playing well enough to be a lock, and then after that, it's kind of a toss up. Like Portland's there at 6-4, Dallas is there 5-4. The Porzingis hasn't. He's just coming back this week. Golden State has gone on a run here and put themselves back above 500. The Spurs are playing 500 basketball. And then you have like Denver, who's weirdly struggling. They can't guard anybody. They're scoring. Jokic is phenomenal, but
Jokic is having an MVP season. They still can't win games.
Yeah, and they're they're scoring 115, giving up 120 to like the Kings. Denver's struggling. New Orleans not quite making that leap, and that unknown factor of Golden State and San Antonio at the 7-8 spot. I think there's definitely a world where they do it. It just depends on does Wall stay healthy? Boogie definitely has to pick it up. Boogie's been pretty bad for them, not just with the technicals and stuff, but I think his overall play hasn't been good. So you need him to step up. You need Christian Wood to keep playing well, and you need Oladipo and Wall to stay healthy. I would say if they get into the playoffs, I'll say this: they're going to get in the playing game or the playing tournament, and they're not going to be a 7 or 8 seed. They're going to be like a 9 or a 10, and maybe they could eke out that playing tournament to get into the playoffs then. But I don't think they get in just as a 7 or 8 seed alone.
Yeah, when I was like sort of quickly crunching the numbers where I got on here, I had them sort of dropping to 10, and just because the West is so loaded, and I imagine some of these teams that are out of the playoff picture right now are going to jump back into the playoff picture. I imagine some teams like San Antonio will probably fall a little bit, but I imagine Houston will probably still get in from that play-in game because that is a good core, but the West is just way too deep for them to, I think, be a lock for the playoffs. On Indiana's front, though, I think I still see them maintaining maybe not a top 4 in the East. They've been one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and we kind of expected that, but we also again talked about the fact that after Depot's out of there, they could probably drop. But I do see them only dropping maybe to like a 6 seed. I don't necessarily see them dropping to 7 or 8 in the East because the East is a little bit weaker. But I still see Indiana behind Karis LeVert, Sabonis, Miles Turner, T.J. Warren, Malcolm Brogdon. That's a really, really good core, I think. And their new coach, and I always blank on his name because I'm just kind of mad that they fired Nate McMillan there. But I'm glad that they're still seeing some success. Where do you guys see Indy fall into?
It's Nate Bjorken.
Okay. Something weird, yeah.
They're playing well.
I can still see him being a top 4 team, honestly, because at least at this point in his career, getting Karis LeVert, replacing him, or replacing Victor Oladipo with Karis LeVert, I think that's an upgrade. At this point, if we're talking about pre-injury Victor Oladipo, then it wouldn't have been an upgrade because Victor Oladipo was an all-star. But at least at this point right now, I think we saw in the bubble what Karis LeVert is capable of, especially like that aspect that I was talking about in terms of carrying a team. He's able to do that now that he has Sabonis, who's having an amazing season, Miles Turner, who can turn it up, and Malcolm Brogdon, who's playing phenomenal basketball himself. I think the Pacers have more of a solid squad than people think. Now, I know we're thinking about like, oh, Victor Oladipo's not there. He was their centerpiece, yada, yada, yada. But in reality, he wasn't the centerpiece anymore. It's Sabonis right now. And now adding Karis LeVert, who, is not injury prone, who can get it going really any game in and game out. I feel like Indiana is going to be a surprise team, maybe even top 3. Quote me on that later if I'm wrong. But Jordan, what do you think? Do you think they can still be a top 4, top 3 team in the East?
Yeah, I mean, they're playing really well. They are, running a really good system where no one guy is, it's not like you have to rely on one guy to score 30 points a game. They're getting these monster performances from, Sabonis. I mean, he's out there. He's 21, 13, and 6 a game, 56% from the field, 38% from 3. I mean, that's all. He's making the All NBA case already. Forget about All Star. He's making NBA right now. Brogdon is just being steady as the point guard. He shoots the ball. He plays good defense. I'm really happy with his kind of evolution over his NBA career. And, Oladipo is the guy after about 20 a game for them. I think LeVert's going to come in and pretty much be right there. I mean, if he does that, you have Brogdon, Sabonis, assuming LeVert averages, let's just say LeVert averages 18 a game. And then you have, Turner, McDermott, and Holiday. That's 6-7 guys averaging over 10 points a game. That's a well-balanced offense. That means that they have guys coming off the bench that are scoring as well. They shoot the ball from 3 exceptionally well. They have 5-6 guys shooting over 35, 36%. And defensively, they do a pretty good job. Turner kind of covers up for some of Sabonis' weaknesses, and Brogdon's going to cover up for some of LeVert's weaknesses. And overall, they're playing really good, hard team basketball. They've had some gritty wins. They came back the other night against Golden State to pull that one out on the road, and they've had some other really nice wins. So I definitely, I don't know about top 3. That might be just a smidge of a stretch, but not by much. I could see them being definitely a 5 and possibly a 4 as well. I think them in Miami could maybe duke it out for that 4 spot. But yeah, definitely impressed with what I've seen so far. They're not like a flashy league pass team. Like, you're not going to be like, Steph. Usually, you get Steph Curry. You'll get an alert for him. Like, he's got 50 in the fourth. Bradley Beal's got 57 after 3. Like, you're not going to get those alerts for the Pacers saying that like Brogdon has 50 going into the fourth. But like, if you just watch them on any given night, you're just going to see really good team basketball, and chances are you're going to see them come out with a win.
You might get that alert for TJ Warren if bubble TJ Warren shows up. Who knows? And then let's close out with the Cavs here. If you're talking about Pelinka working some match, you snuck the Lakers into this. They're not in this trade. The Cavs are part of this trade. Get you. I'm gonna kick you out of this.
We're gonna end the show now.
No, I mean Kobe Altman working some magic here, because you give up a first round pick and Jared Allen, one of the best rim defenders in the league, and just a really good pickup for this Cavs team. I really do think that he's gonna. Again, like, as long as some of these guys come back and they're healthy, I think Darius Garland should hopefully be back next couple of days. Colin Sexton's day-to-day. Love is still out for another week or so. Drummond's playing well. JaVale's playing well. Okoro's playing well. Chetty's playing well. Like, the guys are playing well, and that's why they started the season off well, and then all these injuries just start to pile up, and they just keep losing games now. And we are struggling. They don't look like the same team that they looked like in those first few games, but I do stand by the fact that it is injury-prone, and if this Cavs team can maintain a 500 record, I think they do sneak into the playoffs, whether it's through play-in or one of those lower seeds. But I think this Jared Allen pickup, and Taurean Prince is a solid pickup as well. I know he hasn't been quite as good as he was on the Hawks, but I think that's just because he's just not getting as many touches. I think he'll get some touches here, and does fill that sort of wing depth issue with those injuries. I think this is a very, very good pickup for the Cavs. I don't want Jordan to talk, so I'm going to toss it.
No, I can. One of the main reasons I can see you guys sneaking into the playoffs, because who in the East that everybody thought was a playoff contender is playing horrible basketball right now? Do you guys know?
Not the Celtics.
The entire East.
Starts with an R. Rhymes with
the Raptors. Yeah. I forgot that the Raptors are 2-8.
I forgot they existed.
I told you Arkansas and Baca were huge for them.
And it just goes to show. I mean, what are they right now? They're like 2-8.
2-8. Yeah. And they've blown like 6 leads of 10 points or more. Yeah,
and they've been okay. If we're gonna sneak things in here and there in this episode, real quick, Pascal Siakam. At least his play recently, I think it's been exposed now just how much of a predictable player he is, and that spin move that is his go-to, that has put his team in predicaments and has now led him to a 2-8 record. First of all, I don't think this record is really, symbolic of what the Raptors are capable of, because they do have Nick Nurse still, Fred VanVleet, and Kyle Lowry, their main core. But they need to do something about Pascal Siakam. At least, I don't know. Wait, do you guys have any opinions on that real quick?
I'll say on the Siakam front, like we've talked about him time and time again, that he was just not he's just not the guy that we thought he was last season. He started off well, and then he just sort of fell apart later in the season. And I don't quite remember what you guys said about the VanVleet signing, but I was not a big fan of it, and I had Toronto pretty low in my standings. So I'm not really surprised by the fact that Toronto's struggling, because Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka both, although they are aging and they're not the players that they were in their peaks, they're still massive pieces for that Toronto team, and losing those guys hurts you guys. And then if you're sort of putting all your chips behind Fred VanVleet being your leader, I just don't see you being a good team, even if Nick Nurse is your head coach. And yeah, Siakam, I'm not a big fan of Siakam. At the end of the day, I was never a fan of him. I wasn't a fan of him last season when he was an All-Star. I'm not a fan of him now. I just don't think that he's quite the player that Raptors fans think he is.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing personal. Like, I don't think it's, he doesn't do anything on or off the court that rubs me the wrong way, or I'm like, I dislike him personally. It's just basketball. I just think that he's plateaued and hasn't really gotten better. I mean, you can make the joke that that's all he does is that spin move. I mean, somebody made the joke the other night that they put Wiggins on him to end the game, and they told somebody made the joke that they told Wiggins in the huddle, listen, he doesn't have any idea what he's going to do for the game. So, just go out there and guard him and do your best. But that's just basically what it's come to. And until he works on that move, and I've also heard the reports too that he really for the bubble play and stuff, he really struggled. He didn't get he's really close to his brother, and he didn't get to see his brother for a couple months. So I know mentally he's probably dealing with some stuff, just like everybody else is.
Yeah.
But I would have thought by now that he would have expanded his game a little bit, and I hope he still does. I'm not totally giving up on him. I just hope that he does make the necessary changes, because I feel like if he gets better, the team's going to get better. Van Fleet's not playing bad. I mean, he's maybe not quite living up to that contract, but you knew that was a pretty strong possibility. But he's still shooting the ball pretty well. And like you said, missing Gasol and Ibaka, Boucher is a nice guy to have down there, but he's not those guys in terms of their experience and IQ. But yeah, I mean, with that said, we talk about the Cavs. They definitely have the possibility to sneak in, as an 8 seed or 9-10, at least get in that playing game, and then hey, anything can happen. Like I said, if you can get some guys healthy there, Sexton's been really nice for you guys. Jared Allen's, and Drummond, I joke about them getting all the rebounds, but like seriously, like who is going to out rebound them really in a game, because you have all these guys grabbing the boards down there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think the important thing to note too is I feel like this is probably the biggest domino that's going to fall this NBA season, but I feel like this could also open the carousel. We might have some other deals coming in the next couple of weeks. I know teams are already interested in PJ Tucker as well, who is still serviceable.
I just saw a report that a few teams are inquiring right now about him, actually.
Yeah, my inside source, Sam,
Twitter.
He's looking to trade for him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what other pieces kind of happen. Whatever pieces move teams, the next couple of weeks, and see if this is this Harden trade was maybe the catalyst for that. And like I said, just to close out, I'm rooting for Houston. Like I'm all for it. Give me a 5-6 game win streak automatically, and just to kind of show them that the grass isn't always greener. So I'm pulling for them hard.
Yeah, I do want to quickly just touch on this, a bit of a shift in direction. We already talked about Kyrie and all that, but the NBA did have to increase their or tighten up on their COVID protocol because there was increased cases. We just talked about how there was just the news report, 16 new cases, a lot of games postponed, and that's why they haven't obviously scheduled out the second half, because they knew they were going to have to build in games and whatnot. But it's come pretty quick and pretty heavy. I was not surprised by the fact that there were cases rolling in, but I'm kind of surprised by the number, just because I thought the league was going to handle a little bit better, and I feel like they've struggled quite a bit. And there was reports earlier today that I think it was Zach Lowe that tweeted out that he's talked to many people in the league, and everybody said they're just not enjoying this season because of all the protocols and the risks and all the scare and whatnot. Do either of you guys have any thoughts on the Titan protocols?
Let me go real quick, Henry, because I do have to bounce out here. The only thing I'll say is yes, maybe they haven't handled this as perfectly as well as they could have. I feel like even though the NFL had some issues throughout the year, they were very strict on the coaches wearing the masks all the time, and they started finding the Raiders, all this other stuff. And maybe they need to be a little bit harsher in that regard. And that's not going to make the players or coaches like it any better. But at the same time, we have to do what we have to do until the vaccine gets out to everybody. And, Silver was adamant that they're not going to jump the line to get the vaccine, which no one wants to have that conversation, because there's obviously
that'll be controversial.
That would be obviously the ultimate end all. Everybody gets the vaccine and they don't have to worry about it. But Silver's maintained the respect that he's not going to do that. And, the players, it stinks. You're going to have to just not have as much contact. You're going to have to try and stay home in your mansions when you're not at the court. It's not like they have to go home. It's not like you're in the bubble and you're going home to a 12-by-7 hotel room. You go home to your very nice house. Your very
except LeBron, his full penthouse apartment there down in Disney.
Yeah. Very good luck. You're still allowed to go back home, and you're still allowed, you order out your food, send somebody to the store with a mask to get it. We can adjust to this. Everybody in the world is adjusted on the fly as this has been going on. I'm sure these guys can do it. The NBA is doing the best that they can to try and get these games on. They don't want to postpone games. They don't want to make teams play with 5, 6, 7 guys missing. That's obviously not the goal. And they're running into a little bit of adversity here. Hopefully, if the players can commit and follow some of these protocols, I hope that'll limit it. Worst case scenario, maybe they take it, it would require more adjusting, but they can take a 2-week break, and that's not ideal. No one wants to do that. But if you have to take a 2-week break, reset, make sure everyone tests negative, and then get back after it, at the end of the day, if it costs you 3-4 games and we have a 66-game season instead of a 72-game season, okay, great. We're playing in 2012, and that's the 2012 season right there. Pretty much. So I think they'll be okay. I think they're going to, I think Silver and them are committed to doing what's best for the players and for the league. And, they want to these guys love playing basketball. They want to get them out there, and they want to get them playing as many games as they can. So that's all I have on it. I got to bounce, but thank you guys, as always, for having me. Go Leapers, and we'll do this again next week.
All right, Henry, close out while Jordan gets out of here. Why don't you give us your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, just to bounce off what Jordan was saying. it's really gonna take all the players and staff to just comply. It's literally if everybody can comply at least to not the fullest extent because it's asking a lot for players. They can't, handshakes and all that stuff is out of the question. But I don't know if you saw George Hill, what he said. He's like, I'm a grown man, blah, blah, blah. Now I can do what I want. I'm like, it's not the point.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how people in general are missing the point of what. And then somebody had the worst analogy in those comments on Twitter, which I'm glad you erased Twitter. There's a lot of toxic shit on there, but like somebody was like, yeah, be more considerate. Cat lost, his family and stuff due to this, and then somebody else responded to that. He's like, oh, so like if one of my teammates got in a car accident, I shouldn't drive anymore or what? And I'm like, what? And somebody else was like one car accident doesn't cause a chain reaction and stuff. It's just like there just needs to be honestly just less stupidity coming from certain people and stuff, less ignorance because their actions are going to affect the people around them. And I hope the NBA figures it out because who doesn't love watching NBA basketball? And we all know the Adam Silver is capable of making things work. Hopefully he can make things work. If not, I'm with pressing the reset button and letting things unfold naturally.
Yeah, and that's why they waited on the second half of the season because they knew they were going to have to build and stuff. And if that includes building in a 2-week delay or a month delay, that is what it is. You had a break in the middle of the season. That's what happened last year. You got a 3-month break and then you went into September, October with that season. So that this is kind of expected. We anticipated it. And yeah, I mean, Henry, your team's been hit one of the hardest. Boston's had 3 games now delayed, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Nine players that were inactive against the game against the Heat. So it just goes to show how prevalent it is for every team because it's been thinning almost for too many rosters that we can that we really predicted at least at this point. All these effects seem a little premature, which is not good. It was expected, but it's kind of premature. We didn't think this early, under 20 games into the season, we're already having this conversation. But we'll see. We'll see how. I feel like the Lakers haven't been hit at all, and I'm like, damn, they're just untouchable in every sense, or what?
Now that Jordan's out of here, we can badmouth the Lakers. No, I agree with you though. To what you're saying, with people making these analogies and whatnot, stupid comments. It really is at the end of the day. Follow the protocols. We saw what happened in the bubble, and it is outside the bubble, so cases are going to happen. But if you follow the protocols, you're not out at strip clubs or at parties, and if you're not maskless, then the numbers will be reduced. People will stay safe. People will keep their lives. And yeah, to what you said about Cat, it's been very interesting to follow his journey through this all and talking about how the way he lost his mother, how that's impacted the way that he's come into the season and whatnot. And it's such a big thing and such a major thing. So exactly what you said. I want to echo exactly what you said. Just stick firm to what the league has put in place and what society is hopefully trying to put in place, and we'll be okay. We'll get through this.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
As long as everybody, is smart about it.
Doing their part.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that'll bring us to a close for this episode. You guys know where to find Jordan, Henry, and I here as always, and we'll be back next week. I know we had a lot of stuff that we kind of talked. We're going to talk about Steph Curry and Becky Hammon and whatnot. Shout out to Becky Hammon for getting that coaching spot. But yeah, we'll be back next week, hopefully with a bit more